Our next panel is on digital identity and decentralized identity. What are the challenges and opportunities that exist across the EU today? We're going to be looking at the current state of EID. Why has it been such a success in the Baltics and across Scandinavia, but not so successful in other nation states? We're going to look at the EU EID wallet proposal. Why is that so difficult to get that hooked up across nations? Smart ID, and why decentralized finance cannot work without a digital ID. Our moderator for this session is Liudas Kanapienis. He is Lithuanian. He's an entrepreneur with over 15 years experience in digital banking, fintech, AML, KYC, and in 2020 was nominated Fintech Leader of the Year here in Lithuania. Liudas, how you doing, mate? Good to see you.
Pleasure to be here and to moderate this fantastic panel. So I'm looking forward to do that.
Very nice. Let's get going.
Hello everyone, my name is Liudas Kanapienis. I'm the CEO and the co-founder at Ondato. I'm actually pleased to have this conversation about the digital identity and the decentralized identity for its challenges and opportunities. And with me, I have 4 other guests that I would like to introduce. So maybe John, kick off from and please introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, I'm Jon Nelnes, based in Oslo, Norway, and working as product manager, signatures and trust services for Signicat, which is a company offering identity-related services across a large part of Europe. And actually, I'm sorry not to be able to join you in beautiful Vilnius, because I could also have visited my new colleagues there, since Dokobit company in Vilnius is now part of the Signicat family, which we are very pleased.
Good, thank you so much. Barbara, please introduce yourself.
Hello, my name is Barbara Hanasek. I'm from CoinFirm, blockchain analytics company, looking at wide range of AML compliance solutions for crypto businesses. So I'm a little bit odd one out here, not the ID company per se, but the topic of digital identity is very close to my heart due to exposure to AML compliance that I've had in the past, and also because of the fact that crypto assets industry basically can't exist without digital ID. At CoinFirm, I'm looking at regulatory affairs, making sure that our tools meet the regulatory requirements, and I'm also responsible for customer engagement.
Great, thank you so much. Kalev, can you move on?
Yeah, my name is Kalev Pihl. I'm CEO of SKID Solutions. We are an electronic identity provider in Baltic states. So our biggest product is the Smart ID, but we also offer mobile IDs, both in Estonia and in Lithuania. And also Estonian ID cards have our electronic identities on them. So yeah, that's what we do.
Thanks so much. And I have with me Audrius. Audrius, please.
Hi everyone. My name is Audrius Ramoška. I'm representing Soveria, the company which is working key activities related to distributed identifiers and more particular verifiable credentials. So this is our field of interest.
Good. So guys, let's kick it off. When talking about something and the challenges and opportunities, of course we have to just state the current situation. So maybe John, let's start with the conversation. So what we have now, like what is the situation with the digital identity today?
It's a really mixed picture, you could say. focusing on Europe, of course, also if you look globally, there are lots of differences as well. But if you look at the European scene, I think it's important to start from the fact that identity and digital identity are national matters, even within the EU. We do not have anything like a European or EU identity, where all identities are national. And you can have multiple identities, multiple national identities, of course, depending on citizenship, residency, or maybe you have rights or obligations because you worked in another country. But those are all national. And this means also that when it's left to the different member states, the level of advancement in digital identity is so different across Europe. You could say my goal would be what the European citizen or any citizen of any country need is EID as a commodity, electronic identity as a commodity. This means more or less that, let's say, 90 to 95% of the adult population will have a reusable EID and will use it, let's say, about twice a week at least. If we put that measure, there can be something like 5-6 countries that fulfill that measure. You could say the advanced countries are the Nordics and the Baltic countries, maybe in particular Estonia, but also the other 2 Baltic countries. And stuff is happening in Benelux, which is also pretty advanced in this area. But if you look at other countries, there is virtually nothing. Either there are no deployed EIDs or they are not used. And this has also been recognized by the European Commission, because you have this eIDAS regulation regulating EID and trust services across Europe. And the general consensus is that eIDAS part on EID has failed because it didn't do enough on getting the national situation settled, and also not enough on coordination. So it's happening now in many countries. We see progress in countries like Italy, Germany, Poland, France. Lots happening in the EID area, but still many countries are lagging behind. What we also see, yeah, please.
Yeah, John, it's just a bit of to reflect, because Baltics were mentioned, and Kalev, if you can elaborate on that a bit of from your perspective, just on this topic as well, because the FinTech is still the Baltic conference mostly. So, Kalev, can you a bit of elaborate on this from your perspective?
So how are we doing in Baltics?
Yeah.
So I think that Baltic market, as Jan already said a little bit, are advanced in some ways, that we really have something on the market that is reusable, like electronic identity, as Jan mentioned that as a cornerstone of some kind of measurement. So yeah, we are advanced to some level, but then again, I think that the market of Baltics is really closed and small, and what we are looking for, or I think the FinTech industry is looking for, is at least EU-wide digital identity schemes, and even better worldwide digital identity schemes, and that's, I think, that where we are not even close to at the moment. So.
Okay, so can we say that current eIDAS scheme is not operational?
I would say yes.
Well, I wouldn't.
Operational. Yeah. I think you could say what this has been established, and that is important. You have largely common reference levels of EID on substantial and high. Those are generally recognized all across. That's a really big achievement. Apart from that, not much happened. But you can have cross-border. You can have cross-border identity 2 ways. You can issue an EID that can be used in multiple countries. We see that. We don't see much of that. Smart ID is one of the few exceptions. Or you can do aggregation like we do in Signicat, where we integrate different national EIDs and we make them available cross-border in one interface. And the EU, of course, now with the revised status has another proposal, which is the digital identity wallet that will be standardized and that will be mandatory to be issued in all member states. Kalev, you have other viewpoints.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm kind of again, it's a question of what is operational EADAS at the moment, or what was expected from it. So I think that with the statement that is listed in the EADAS, then yeah, from the European side you have the EADAS nodes, you have the cross-border capabilities there, and you have lazy member states who don't actually do much. And also I would say that it has been, well, Jon said that we have those 3 levels of levels of assurance that everybody knows. Then, well, we have tried to somehow map our level of assurance in a member state called Lithuania. It has been really difficult because there is no legal grounds to do that. So it kind of, the member states have been in different places where when we look at that, but in general, I would say that the promise of possibilities in the EADAS have been realized to some extent, and then it is all the nations within the EU who don't actually want to act on that. And we cannot force them, and we shouldn't force them. If they don't want to, then they shouldn't do it, I think.
So we'll come back to the proposals. It's just like a bit of moving forward with that. Barbara, you mentioned when we had the conversation with you that like the decentralized finance, which is like literally your topic, cannot work without the digital identity. So you know, why is that, and why we like need to talk about this?
Yeah, thanks for that. There's a few reasons for this. First of all, decentralized finance is global in nature, so it has global outreach, and as a user, as a customer of a digital finance, of the decentralized finance, I can interact with decentralized platforms all over the world, and the customers of those decentralized platforms are spread across many countries. They can transact within minutes, within even seconds, from different corners of the world. For that reason, I strongly believe that managing decentralized finance without digital ID and without decentralized ID in particular would fail in long term. As of the moment, decentralized finance is not subject to well, let me rephrase. At the moment, practically, decentralized finance does not use AML KYC controls to the extent that it should. That situation will probably change over the years with the regulators looking into decentralized finance and trying to work out a good framework to regulate that, to impose AML KYC obligations. And with the global nature of decentralized finance, I don't think that traditional IDs would work. The second reason that I would mention is the mere nature of decentralized finance. It's based on decentralizations where users and customers of decentralized platforms feel more confident not giving the control over their assets into a centralized party. So I would be surprised if the users/customers would be willing to give the control over their ID to the centralized party. So that's why I think decentralized ID is the future for decentralized finance.
Okay, so we're now shifting basically to others to you. So you know, it sounds like we have the infrastructure there and with some kind of regulation, all this stuff. But so then, why we need this change? No, so you were working on the project like for quite a few years already. I know, maybe even longer that I don't know. And why we need that? Like why the customers need that?
Actually, colleagues already identified key problems on a EU level where EIDAS failed because it was not very well prepared for cross-border. On another hand, worldwide community knows about issues that certain type of functions in general it's not accessible on internet now. For example, to prove that you have certain level of education. I mean, in a true digital way to prove such. Also to prove that you are above a certain level of ages to buy some restricted or use some restricted services, and everything is known. And up to now, or let's say up to when blockchain or distributed ledger technologies comes, it was a lot of tries to found this way how to embed or to upgrade internet to have proper identity, to have proper transactions, of course, security at certain level. And this is, I would say, key driver why we need this distributed identity, because we do not have any other alternative, because centralized identities or federated identities doesn't solve these problems.
Yeah. So but now we are kind of shiftly moving to another a bit of topic of then new proposals of EIDAS. Yeah. So and all these wallets. So does it solve the problem then? Maybe John, you can also like give your point of view.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and the answer by now is we do not know if it will solve the problem. But it's a pretty bold move by the EU to say that okay, we go further to all member states, including the reluctant ones, and say that listen, guys, you must ensure that all your citizens, residents can get a digital identity wallet. Either you issue it yourself, you have someone issuing on your behalf, or you let commercial actors do it and you approve these commercial actors to cover your market. And I would say it's not self-sovereign identity as such, fully self-sovereign. Rather, you could say it's self-sovereign identity inspired, but it surely goes a long way towards distributed identity, and it goes a long way towards user control and user centricity. And this is really important because I really don't think that there's anyone in the identity business or an identity expert that would claim that this is a wrong move or this is the wrong direction. On the contrary, it's the way we need to go. The small Kalev maybe disagree, but we'll see.
Yeah,
but it's
so
more like,
I
in principle, it's the right move, and then it's a matter of making it work. Can it work? Can it happen? Can the user take on the responsibility in a good way? Will governments really deploy wallet more than just formally check that? Yeah, it's available. We've done our duty. What will be the relationship to the existing deployed DID schemes? And there are many questions related to it. But it's a bold and challenging move, and I'm as a principle, I like it.
So that's where we talk about the challenges and opportunities. But Kalev, can you agree with that?
Absolutely no. Other than somebody being definitely bold there, no. I think that I read the explanation on the new EIDAS, and I kind of agree with the problems, but I see very little connections between the solutions and the problems. I've called this EU wallet idea a solution that really seeked for a problem to solve, and then was assigned one. All in all, I would say that this all member states jumping on board is a good idea, and that is basically one line there stating that within some months after this enforcement, all member states have to notify at least some kind of scheme that is available in their member states. And period. That would solve the issue that we are discussing, that some member states haven't jumped on board. We don't have to invent a new scheme for that. And that would kind of be response to the member states issue. But the cross-border issue is somewhat totally different. And the cross-border issue still that hasn't been solved and hasn't been even addressed anyway with this EU wallet as well is that when Kalev is learning in Vilnius University, and at the time having maybe a resident permit from Lithuanian government, getting the degree, and then moving to Netherlands at some point, and then having in 20 years Netherlands identity, and then wanting to get from Vilnius University the diploma that he actually got, then there is no way to identify that Estonian citizen at some point in Vilnius University who is now living in Netherlands being the same person. And that is not in the agenda at all. And that is the biggest thing that we see that worries everybody when we talk about cross-border identification of somebody, that when we meet over the electronic channel, it's very hard to understand how they connect to those different identities we have seen so far about that same physical person.
Yeah, Audrius, can you?
Actually, from my point of view, it's a very good point, Kalev, because I read this document as well, and for me, it's obvious that the European Union is trying to establish something like EU ID. And this is, I think, will address exactly that problem you are referring about Netherlands and Vilnius, about the same person. What I see mostly, first of all, of course, it's a big chance for EU. If everything will be properly implemented based on previous fails, it is a big chance. What I see most important is, our previous investments. For example, Estonia already 20 years with electronic ID. This is 20 years old technology. And if we will try to stick, and I see already some signs that companies, organizations are pushing their existing solutions, which somehow stopping progress. I would like to avoid that. It doesn't matter how we will use existing system, existing investments, above, in parallel, or on top, but it should not stop progress and should not stop possibility to use bigger opportunities we are getting with these new technologies.
Audrius, you mentioned a kind of a big chance for Europe, but this big chance then on if that works properly on issuing the wallets and in EID, Kalev, what does it mean like for your business? Like just a very straightforward question.
Okay, for our business, it might mean that we have a great chance to sell another product probably on a market that is great. But I would rather ask that what does it mean for this overall Scandinavian way of building digital services, which I think also full Baltic and some other parts of Europe have done. Basically, what we are talking about with the compulsory wallet and compulsory usage of that wallet. We are talking about ending the back-end integrations and moving that to the front-end integrations with the identity wallet. Meaning that you will lose all the registry to registry connections, saying that, well, those all have to go through the person. And that is basically throwing away the investments we have done 20, 30 years at some countries. And I don't see, at least at the moment, what is the value, why it must be now kind of brought on the table. I understand that there are some business opportunities, and as a kind of a business, we are very interested in new business. But as a citizen, I'm sometimes kind of worried that where my taxpayer money goes. And at the moment, there's a justification of that seems to be a bit vague.
Okay, thanks. And but how do you see that like deploying? It wouldn't be that some kind of war of wallets then, and especially from the user's perspective, because we talk now about a bit of infrastructure, and the regulatory side, but how it looks from the user perspective. And Barbara, you're really working from those different angles, in this sphere. How do you see that, just from the user's perspective?
Well, from the perspective of again crypto assets industry and decentralized finance, introduction of European wallet, EU wallet, digital wallet, would actually make the compliance in decentralized finance easier, and I mean both for the business and both for the users. As I've mentioned, with the global reach of decentralized finance and with the way it works, the most suitable solution to ensure compliance in that space is actually a solution that is written into the smart contract, and it is way much easier. It's going to be way much easier to do that. Having the idea of digital wallet. It goes along lines with the whole digital finance package within the EU, from the user perspective, especially in the context of decentralized finance, we see that customers and users are quite skeptical about any sort of KYC AML checks. So the easier it is for them, and the less they have to do on their part, the more likely they will comply. On the other hand, the use of decentralized wallet will give them the ability to control their ID and to have the oversight of who can access it, when they can access it. So again, that goes along with the whole spirit of decentralized finance. Now, that is not to say there are no challenges, and I completely agree with what has been said so far with regards to the biggest challenge of the wallet being the interoperability and how it's going to work between the countries, because that's the crucial element to ensure it will be effective.
John, you're like really supporting those integrations and then different. Can you reflect on this?
Yeah, I agree a bit with Kalev on some of the issues there, for example. But I think those backend integrations you mentioned, those can be used at national level, but they will not be available cross-border anyway. So you need to do something to get your register information and your credentials available. But what I fear on the EU proposal is that you enforce one common solution on all countries. That may not be the right way of doing it. And also doing something, if governments do it themselves, I mean, governments are notoriously bad at sales and marketing. So if the governments are solely responsible for getting this into the market and getting user on board, it's fair that it won't happen. But in the first run, we would likely make the wallet available, the different national wallets actually available through one integration into our identity brokers. It will be one EID solution along with different other solutions. So that will be the first run, and then we'll just see what happens if this gets deployed and it gets into real use. I would, as Kalev, preferred an approach where you defined what are the goals, and then what is needed to solve those goals, to reach those goals. But I still think that moving in a higher degree of EU coordination and a higher degree also on tension awareness on making this available is a good move. So to us, I don't really know. It brings opportunities and challenges as it does for Kalev and SK. But in the first run, it will be one more EID that we need to integrate. That's it.
Audrus, I feel you want to have your word on this, because we are now talking about this, like a bit of basic infrastructure, as I believe from your point of view.
Yes, because when we are talking, first of all, about digital wallet, it's a relatively small part of the whole infrastructure, because companies who will need, accordingly to law, to serve this digital wallet, they have, or they should have, this another side of software to serve. Also, we should not forget that digital wallet means wallet mostly on smartphone, which could be switched off, which could discharge battery and can't work. So, but people should be accessible this wallet 24/7, and it is a lot of small pieces for big picture. So wallet itself, it's for end user, yes, wallet it's enough, but for technical people, for community, it's much more. Another part, referring to what Kalev said, we need to know that we will not need a lot of integrations from a wallet point of view, because it's already invented some additional protocols, like, for example, DAD communication protocol, and it is already second version. What I would suggest, especially for people involved in EU team who is working on Toolbox, to look into Canada. Ontario, Canada, they already announced specifications and some standards they are planning to consider for their wallet. And this could be a good example to understand which direction most probably EU Toolbox will go. And this is, when you understand this technology's architecture, it gives some good ideas how we could integrate existing most advanced Scandinavian systems or less advanced in other countries. And this could coexist very, I would say, well, from my point of view.
But where do you see the EU is moving today? Like, because you say that they have to look at the Canada example, but there's also some kind of view that they have at the moment.
I think I would say, answer is two sides from my side. First of all, this wish to improve EIDAS regulation, it's a very good sign, and it's very advanced, and this is, I would say, perfect step. Another side, of course, how we will end with this step. So, because, we are talking now today, we heard already some concerns. During summertime, after announcement of EIDAS, it was organized a lot of workshops where people raising a lot of concerns, and everyone is looking now to Toolbox preparation, which is part of EIDAS upgrade. So, I would say two sides. One is very good that this was made. This next one, which is not known yet, how we will finish with that.
So, and I believe that the main question is then, how it will be implemented, and especially in different countries, because that was already a bit of mentioned, but maybe we can have a more deeper discussion on that. So, are the countries in the national levels, and especially the governments that are usually trying to build not only the infrastructure or the framework, but also the applications for it, are they really ready to do that? Kalev, I really believe that you have a lot to say in this topic.
Well, I tried to say a little bit only, but I think that the prime example of that is the last EIDAS, or the first EIDAS release, and the EIDAS nodes that we had. And basically we had the infrastructure ready, we had like, how it already stated, that we have like standards and we have everything ready, and then comes the Germany and says that, well, but with our laws and regulations, the EIDAS nodes have to be reconfigured on all the member states, and that's the story. That there are those member states who still force everybody to change the path after even the regulation has been taken to govern them. So I'm not the big dreamer in that sense that I would actually believe that it will solve all the issues. I would rather think that we will have additional issues, because the EIDAS 2.0 doesn't take away any of the current issues. The EIDAS nodes as they are must be there. All member states have to support that infrastructure. The wallet is just an additional thing there, although to some extent mandatory thing to accept at least everywhere. And that's kind of what makes this other infrastructure maybe meaningless. But anyway, we will have a lot of different weird pilot projects around Europe, I think, for some years, thanks to that regulation, if it comes to force. Still, to everybody who is listening, don't think that it is already a regulation. It is still the proposal from Commission, and there is no regulation yet. As the ADAS 2, there is ADAS 1. And this wallet, if you talk about standardization, I think that I already see a lot of different those existing pilots or actual implementations in different countries. Like in Poland, great project. It doesn't comply with the expectation of the EU Commission. And now the question is, where does this Polish wallet end up? Like, definitely they would like to standardize that as a way forward for Europe, but and also Germany has a challenger there, and there are different pilots which try to be the European wallet now. I don't think that any of them will individually win. Like we tried to mandate what is the digital signature format in Europe and came up with 3 different standards for that. We will have the same issue with wallet, believe me.
So that's where I want this conversation basically to a bit of move and to touch, and that's why I'm always coming through those different angles. So John, you work in different countries, with the different providers and EIDs at the moment, and regulations as well. And the Poland was mentioned, a really good example on this as well. So how do you see from your perspective, if it's, we do understand that the targets are really good, so the initiative in general, every one of us agrees that it's a good chance, and a really good opportunity basically to standardize that. But do you see that possible?
I think the timeline that the EU has proposed is way too short in this case, because they have given themselves 12 months to establish the toolbox, means common specifications and standards. And as we are discussing here, where do you start? You start from Canada, you start from Poland, you start from Germany. As we say, there are different solutions out there that are being tried out in practice. Poland is a good example. We're involved in something in Germany. The Finnish government had a call for a wallet solution, and they were suddenly faced by the EU initiative and saying, hey, should we complete this call and make something Finnish, like a Finnish wallet? How do we ensure that this eventually can align with the EU system? And also 12 months after the issuing of the toolbox to have implementations in all countries. I think it's way too optimistic to make that happen. There are also other issues in here. The unique identity proposed in the revised ADAS has a mandatory, unique and persistent number for each country, for each person in each country. We know this works in the Nordics and Baltics, where we have personal identification, national identification numbers, but many countries don't have that, like Germany, France, or they're not available, at least for any common use. So will this make its way? We have countries that cannot, like Germany, that cannot really uniquely identify their citizens as it is. And there are pros and cons for all such approaches. But and also another thing is that there's a wide range of attributes that need to be made available. It's a huge standardization effort standardizing syntax and semantics of such attributes, and furthermore, are they available from all countries? Again, Baltic and the Nordic countries with good register infrastructures, yes, the information is available, it can be trusted. In other countries, it's definitely not available. And how do you, or in a trustworthy way? So I think the timeline is too much, it's too short, and I think they should allow more leeway for national differences than making one toolbox that is too overarching and specifying it all. The important stuff is interoperability, not that it's the same solution all over.
But do you think it's a problem of the wide scope that it has in the targets, or maybe it has to be narrowed in this case, and maybe to add some, I don't know, less attributes? An example that's really good. What you touched on this, and I will ask Barbara actually to elaborate on that. So what is needed actually from the attributes perspective, maybe to make it just work for I don't know, for one or other business case, an example for the same decentralized finance. So because maybe that's a really problem of that we are trying to solve everything at once, isn't it?
I would actually say it's a wider issue than the attributes and the details. I think drawing a parallel to other EU discussions, it takes, let's say, a change of attitude and kind of a more collaborative manner into agreeing something on the EU level that would work for all the countries. And we see that in the wider digital finance space, in the discussions of, for example, MiCA, the Markets in Crypto Assets Directive, and the pace that it moves with. It's a matter of, let's say, kind of a compromise among countries. So rather than looking at what is in the best interest of your country, to kind of link that and compromise it with the best interests of the EU, and making sure that we as EU are competitive global wise.
But again, you know, I'm always trying to get all the questions like what does it mean from just consumers' perspective, from the user's perspective. So by saying competitive, you know, so what do you mean by that? So what would you say that would be a really good good achievement, and basically what should be then the target in terms of the competitiveness?
Okay. So in terms of the decentralized finance, the regulatory aspect of it and the clear legal legislative framework around it would actually move the market towards being more competitive. And we've seen that in other aspects of crypto assets. In, for example, Singapore being at the forefront of the regulations, or Switzerland. This is where businesses move and where they set up their headquarters for crypto assets industry to have that legislative certainty as to where they operate, how they operate. And in the context of decentralized finance, having the effective measures of digital ID is kind of the foundation to make sure that the compliance framework can be built around decentralized finance. And with that, if we have fragmented different implementations of ADAS in different countries, it would certainly be more challenging to implement that verification of ID in decentralized finance. So having more of a standardized norm makes it way easier, I believe, to implement and to translate the requirements into the smart contracts. Because rather than using the standards of different countries, you can follow one standard into implementing the smart contract call into the e-wallet, into the digital wallet.
Kalev, do you see from your perspective that it's like possible to achieve those goals that Barbara is talking about in the current setup?
Well, Barbara is absolutely educated person and doesn't talk any rubbish. Probably it is possible. It's just a question of do we have a common understanding that this is necessary and commitment to do it. So I think that's where we are facing some issues, and probably also when we talk about these positive scenarios, we are and with this decentralized financing and also decentralized identity and those wallets and some of those cornerstones of those wallets, and then we normally talk about the person who is actually the legal owner of that wallet. and we rarely go to the point where the wallet has been taken over. And do we have tools and mechanisms to actually somehow protect the owner of the wallet in that case? And to what level do we have that ability? And if that wallet has been misused for 2, 3, 4, 7 months, what is our ability to roll back anything that has been done or understand who did what? So I think that as a society, those things that Barbara talks, those are possible. But I'm not sure that we as a society have been committing to that at the moment.
That's a really nice shift, Kalle. Thank you for that. About talking about the challenges. So because you're totally right that now we talk about like just having a bit of pink glasses, and good looking just at the good scenarios and the good examples. But that's the next question, and basically maybe Audrey, I will kick off with you. Is about the actual main challenge on moving towards the fully decentralized identity, and then how we can ensure that it will be misused from the very beginning.
To be honest, very difficult question because it's somehow related to prediction, and this is almost impossible. But taking into account your question, also what Jon mentioned about this very short time frame to implement this, I would say, EIDAS extension, let's say this way, and a lot of uncertainties. It's difficult, very difficult to predict. But in general, I'm very positive. First of all, because I'm coming from technology side, and to be honest, we do not have any, as of now, any competitive alternative to these verifiable credentials, which is in mind for EIDAS extension. And what I'm thinking is that if this specification or toolbox will be prepared in a proper way, I would predict that it will be big pressure from end users to use as quickly as possible such type of advantages such digital wallet could provide. Because we started our today meeting from a message from Jon that EIDAS failed. And we know, and this quite detailed analysis by EU is done, what was wrong with previous EIDAS, and what is selected, what is expected, I think addresses very well previous fails. So in the short form, I still positive that if specification will be prepared quite well, pressure from end users to have possibility to identify ourselves in another country, to identify or to provide some information about person, about ourselves, could be big pressure for governments, for business to implement as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm. Jon, do you fully agree with that? And especially when talking about the challenges, because you work in this field as well, and you see not only the bright side of this part, but also the other side of users' activity and different tryings. So can you reflect on this?
What we see is that I'm not saying all, but at least almost all successful deployments and solutions in the identity area, they are a cooperation between public and private sector. It's not the government or the public sector doing it alone, but it's also not the private sector establishing something that government does not approve. So there must be some kind of cooperation here. I think it's necessary because it's long time known that in electronic identity and digital identity you have a chicken and egg problem. You don't get any service providers to jump on unless you have users, and you don't get any users to jump on unless you have services that they can use this digital identity for. So you have this is a very difficult situation to solve, and it will be again faced by the wallet. Users will only want it if they can use it for something useful. The service providers will only accept it if there are users out there. So deployment and usage in parallel to make this happen, just like any other EID that has been deployed. So we made that in the Nordics, you made that in Estonia and also in the Baltics, and it's happening other places. But that's a challenge. That's one challenge. And to me, it's important that government cannot do it alone. They have to team up with the private sector, and maybe in particular the finance and banking sector, which are in need of strong electronic identity. So this is one element I would like to pinpoint in this as a challenge.
Kalev, you build a really, you scaled a lot in different countries, and you probably know the recipe, so how then it can work actually. So can you share that?
Yeah, I think that I would like to come back to the point that Audrius, I think, very well pointed out that what we need is a mechanism for the market to actually work. I'm a strong believer in the capitalism, and I think that exactly that is what is missing in this current proposal. It is forcement from governments. There is no market traction. There is no scalability in that sense, and it's still member state bound solution. So I would really want to emphasize the potential of the market. I think that there is a market, and I think that this market should be regulated. Yes, it should be clear what can we bring on that market, what kind of supervisory institutions there must be in different places for that to actually it to thrive. But it shouldn't be, again, 27 member states implementing some technical project. That is not a thing that member state must do. They should actually create the marketplace where it can actually happen. And it should be across the 27 member states, not within all the 27 member states. So that is, I think, very good point that Audrius made, that when we actually say what it is, how it works, there will be market tension. The market will pull the solutions out from the companies. It will be actually implemented. We don't have to fear the fact that nothing will be there if we allow it to be there.
So, and coming back, Audrius, to you. So then, but isn't is that this push or the pull is more from the business side, but not from the consumer side?
I would say from both, because when we started to think about Soveria, which I'm representing, initial idea was KYC, how to exchange data with KYC. For example, banks investing a lot, they're spending a lot of money on KYC, but now property agents also going under KYC and ML regulation, and for them it's impossible such amount. So and here it is already market that banks who already have big data to sell for such type of small companies. And in future, I'm sure Barbara will confirm such type of exchange of KYC or ML data will be much more required. So this is from business push, I think. When more business will understand benefits of what is coming with digital wallet, I think this one. And another side I already mentioned from users, when the people will know that they do not need to go to create apostille of his diploma from university, but he could do that from a home, from a bed, remotely, and then apply somewhere in Germany for job. This will be pushed from users. I think from both.
Okay, good. Barbara, do you agree with that?
Yes, certainly. I can only echo what has been said, and both from the consumer side and from the business side, and again, especially in the context of crypto assets, decentralized finance. It is let's say beyond my imagination to view how that sector can develop within the next 5-10 years without the notion of digital ID. And I think we have to think of well, completely different user there than a banking client, where let's say asking for a paper form of ID is really acting as a deterrent to the customers, and the businesses will simply well have troubles getting the right amount of customers once the actual KYC AML obligations are in place in all the countries for decentralized finance. This is just not going to work without the notion of digital ID and hopefully also decentralized ID. And to the point mentioned before about sharing the information on the KYC side, that need, I think, has been in the market for years, not only in the decentralized finance or crypto assets, but in the traditional finance too. I think, though, here I would slightly put some doubt on it. Sharing the KYC information always puts the risk of data privacy, and always puts the kind of questions out there as to who are we sharing with, who's ultimately responsible for it. The transfer of data is there. Whereas if we think about the notion of decentralized identity, where banks, financial institutions, crypto asset businesses can access the decentralized identity, but it's ultimately governed and controlled by the user. I think the need to share the KYC will slightly move away. But obviously, that's a very long-term view that hopefully we will see.
Yeah, maybe not so much jumping into. Of course, that's a big issue with the GDPR stuff, and basically, I think we would need another hour to discuss that, because we then have to discuss who is the data controller and who is the data processor in that field, and there's still lots of the issues unsolved and still even not discussed, I believe, in some of the cases. But yeah, maybe not let jump into it, because we just have just few minutes left, to be honest, for this conversation. And I would like to finish that with a bit of maybe a better note from let's say our perspective and what we bring to the audience that is listening. And to finalize that with the more opportunities than sight, and our approach from all of us, because we do understand that there's quite a few challenges in basically moving towards the real digital identity, towards the businesses that we operate in, and to make it happen, and to make it happen in the sustainable way, of course. But what kind of opportunities the digital identity and the decentralized identity initiatives creates today, and maybe what are the opportunities, especially thinking about our listeners, that for them, for their businesses, for the financial institutions and fintechs and other type of companies, maybe operating in the decentralized finance and other industries. So what it brings to them, and maybe John, we started a conversation with you. Maybe you can start with this opportunistic side of the new type of approach to the identity itself.
Yeah, I think it has been mentioned a lot by Barbara, for example, that thinking this way about identity brings lots of possibilities to target which information is available to the receiver, to be that a service provider, a government, or whatever. So what you can tailor the information in a much better extent, and you can have verifiable information available that is not only a claim, but it's a claim that's also backed by evidence, and this can be used wide range of services. And yeah, well, you mentioned making KYC information available for reuse under user control. It's one area that's surely been looked into. Also, exchange of diplomas, all these things. There are really lots and lots of opportunities to build a better ecosystem for identity. I think it's moving in the right direction in principle, but it's a long way and it's a difficult way.
Kalev, can you give your view on the opportunities side?
I'm strong believer in the opportunities that, but again, this can be like really in a small scale when we look at the home markets wherever we are and operate. And probably, we are looking at the at least a good discussion over some time on the identity, because the ADAS fixed something and now we have a new discussion, and this is always a great opportunity to actually build something new and better than we had before. But in a global scale, I would say that looking at the trends of identity as such, and then we still have like millions of people without any meaningful identity claim at all. The trend is that the internet will reach those people with the digital identity before their government reaches them with some kind of a traditional identity. So I'm thinking that the digital identity for the world is definitely well supporting the kind of sustainable development goals overall, that to support the overall digitalization. The services are mostly for people, and to serve somebody, you have to know them, and that's why the identity is crucial there. So, we are on a right path. I'm pretty sure with that. So,
good, thank you, Audrus. Can you give your
very short.
opportunistic shot?
Definitely. Actually, for end user, it doesn't matter. Is it distributed identity, wallet-based, or not distributed? The matter is services and what he could get. So I think this distributed identity by itself, it's nothing yet. But if you will look for us, for technology companies, through the additional layer like verifiable credentials, that could give us opportunity to provide much more better services and new services.
Good. Barbara, final word from your side, if I may ask.
Sure, really just one line, and echoing the message there. I'm quite having positive outlook, into the work that is done within the EU for the digital wallet. I do believe there are challenges, but from the consumer and business perspective in decentralized finance, I think it's a right step. If we are considerate enough to, as countries, as the EU, to look at that and to look at the implementation with the view of the opportunities that it can bring in crypto assets, I think it's definitely a great step to observe.
Good. Thank you so much, guys. We are out of time. I would really love to discuss it more and more with you, but thanks for this great discussion, and I hope our listeners actually found something interesting for themselves. So thank you so much one more time.
Thank you for all of you.
All right, thank you very much for a very interesting panel session, Ludus. It seems to me, listening and watching your panel, that there's a big dance going on between the EU, between member states, And then we've also got the private sector in each country as well that moves across. That all of these need to somehow work together to do this, and it's really difficult right now. What are your thoughts on these three factors working together?
Yeah, so you see, what we discussed basically and what we can touch there is that there's lots of the business cases around and basically that are not covered yet, or there's a really big demand from the market, but still not a really perfect view on how it can be solved. You know, so there's really lots of the initiatives around the world with different countries and initiatives from the business and from the governmental perspective and at the EU level as such, but still not so clear how it will work in action. Because for myself, it's really important to understand, so for me as the user, what will be the actual benefits and what I will be using. So that part is still a bit of unclear. But what is obvious that there's lots of the opportunities around, lots of the initiatives around, and everyone in this room was really happy about what is happening and where we are involving.
Sure. It seems, again, watching it, that it's this is a hard thing to do, right? It's just genuinely, now, the EU has solved many hard issues, and there's many difficult. Is this issue of a single identity or distributed identity, is it necessarily harder than any other project the EU's come along, or why is this so tough?
Well, it really touches the kind of very basic but very core things, you know, and it involves the other questions like privacy, you know, the security, right, and lots of the issues around that, because when we are now talking, even today, we are talking about the good scenarios, you know, and kind of what we want to achieve for the user like me or you, just, I don't know, going to, the really good example mentioned there, Estonian with a Lithuanian diploma going to Italy and so on and so on. Yeah, so, but we have to always keep in mind that there might be a bit of other type of customers that will be try to just cheat the system, and that's where we are touching really sensitive questions, especially with the infrastructural and of course the obvious rights on the data itself and the core functional things, which are really important and really not so easy to solve.
Interesting. Liudas, thank you very much. Thank you everyone for watching our panel today. That's the end of Digital Identity. We'll see you in the next session.